critically analyzing global affairs. The Muckrakers on today's News Talk, TNT.
Well, welcome back to the Muckrakers with me, Andrew Eborn. And here on the Muckrakers, we pledge to continue tackling the most pressing and controversial news issues of our time. Our mission is to provide more light and less heat in our unwavering quest to uncover the truth and to inform, educate and entertain, all with dignity and respect. And it's vital that we don't just ask the questions, but question those answers. And today we're going to look at the EU's new vaccine pilot programme. Where could possibly go wrong? And I'm delighted to help me do that. We've got TNT regular James Freeman and also the brilliant Andrew BRIDGEN. Welcome to you both, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi, Andrew.
And our viewers.
It's good to see you. So Andrew BRIDGEN, who I've shared a studio with many times, he's a former Member of Parliament for North West Leicestershire, UK, since 2010. He's very active in standing up against official narratives, including COVID and net zero, and was initially elected to Parliament in 2010. What are you up to these days, Andrew?
Well, I'm trying to work out what happened at the general election in North West Leicestershire. There's quite a few anomalies, Andrew, that we're working through. Inexplicable coincidences like the whole elections department in the local council resigned en masse a year ago and were replaced by a whole new team. The fact that they were left in empty offices for many, many months before the election when the rest of the council moved out. The fact that despite my constituency getting considerably smaller on the boundary changes because of the number of houses that we've built, it was announced that it was going to take up to 4 hours to bring the ballot boxes in. And the count wouldn't start proper till 2 a.m, 4 hours after the polls had changed, when we've always got the ballot boxes in 40 minutes before, even though the constituency were bigger. And interestingly, I found out that Ipsos Mori were due to do an exit poll in my seat, but despite struggling UK-wide to man up 500 polling stations, they pulled out of North West Leicestershire 2 weeks before the polling date and said we weren't going to poll North West Leicestershire on polling day. So all I find is that whenever I go out into the street, everyone says they voted for me and they want to know what's happened.
It is extraordinary because obviously we had that in America and you know what happened as a result of that. What is the process now then if you're disputing that?
Well, I can't understand it. I got 63% of the vote in 2019. My constituents are not above voting against the Labour Party or the Conservative Party because I led Leave in the referendum. And obviously all the major parties were for Remain, yet 61% of my constituents voted with me to leave the European Union. The answer is we've got to get, I need to get an independent polling company to go around and knock on doors. I can't really do it myself because everybody knows who I am and they'll be biased. Sure. But clearly, it doesn't really matter what I pay. They know, the polling companies know, or the marketing companies know that if they find the result I think they'll find, they'll come under immediate attack, and whatever I'm paying them won't be worth that to their business, will it? So there's this is a huge problem. But obviously, I mean, the establishment would want to fight tooth and nail to prevent me proving there was any election fraud in North West Leicestershire, because it would undermine the whole of the UK election system, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's a fascinating subject. Well, keep us updated here on the Muckrakers. We'll get you back regularly to see what's happening on that sort of thing. I want to touch on, however, the Daily Mail article, which states that more than half of Keir Starmer's MPs took union cash to help them fight the election. In a surprising revelation, it's emerged that out of the 404 Labour MPs, 213 have accepted a total of 1.8 million from union leaders since the election was called in May. And this is the first time we're seeing the full extent of union donations to MP in the newly formed government. Andrew, let me get your take on that first of all.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. We know that the Labour Party are mainly funded by the unions. It's mainly public sector unions. I know Labour MPs who've had flats provided by unions in London or at discounted rates, etc., throughout their careers. But I mean, what the public can see is it hasn't taken long for the Labour Party's paymasters to want their return on their investment, which is the huge pay rises we're going to be seeing, or we are seeing already being announced for the public sector. Indeed, it was in the Labour Party's manifesto that they would be paying back their sponsors, the unions, with huge inflation-busting pay rises. paid for by the rest of us.
James?
Yeah, I've got to agree with Andrew, really. I mean, it's quite astonishing, really, some of the levels of these offers which have been settled. And, you know, it's not stopping them striking either, because we've heard from the rail unions that despite the huge pay offer that they've been given, they're still going to go on strike. You know, we've seen that from other sectors as well. So I think it is very, very worrying. I mean, some of the aspects of sort of better working conditions, I think, are welcome from Labour. I think there are some things they come forward which I think are useful, but this kind of relaxing and making it easier to strike for unions, I think, is just a whole bag of trouble for the next few years for Labour.
Yeah, you make absolute sense on that. So, I mean, ASLEF Rail Union, they've announced new strike shortly after securing, what is it, a 14.25% pay rise, and they're fueling criticism that the unions are holding significant power over the Labour government. High-profile MPs, including Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, she received significant donations, apparently 144,000 since 2019. Labour's pledged to renationalise railways and introduce new workers' rights laws, aligning with long-standing union demands. It is fascinating having a look at that, because they're also talking about trade unions will be free to strike, even if most of their members do not vote for one under a new law the government will propose within weeks. And there's also the compensation increase that basically, a big report again on the headlines, all these papers are screaming about it. Workers contacted by boss outside normal working hours could receive thousands of pounds more in compensation at employment tribunals under these new government plans. You've obviously seen these, Andrew, the various plans. They were talked about in the lead up to the election. What do you make of them?
Well, it's going to be anti-business, but I mean, so many of the policies of the current Labour government are anti-business. They are even more wedded to the insanity that's net zero, which is going to splurge possibly trillions. I think no one really knows the true cost of net zero, with the increased requirement to the grid to carry, if everything goes over to electricity, which will leave us very vulnerable to electrical outage, with that the only energy supply. And as one of those Labour spokesmen said, don't worry, you won't be paying for it. It's going to be paid for by the private sector. Well, I mean, where do they think the private sector are going to get their money from? It's the basic lack of understanding of the way the economy works. And these are not even just Labour backbenchers. These are ministers in charge of supposedly making these decisions. No wonder we've had one of the shortest political honeymoons in history for Keir Starmer, with the disorder on the streets and the unsatisfaction with two-tier Keir and the way they're going to handle the economy. I think Labour will be very glad they've got a huge majority, because their popularity with the public, when they only actually had 1 in 5 of the adults in the UK got them in with the biggest majority we've ever known. They're going to be in for a rough ride, but they're going to give us a rough ride as well, Andrew.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is going to be the shortest honeymoon in history, probably. And I predict that if we were to have the election again tomorrow, the result could be very different. Not least, you'll get your seats back. James, what's your take on it?
Interesting. Look, I think the Labour Party, I think their honeymoon is over, and I think they're going to get themselves into trouble very, very quickly. Clearly, these deals that they've done with the unions, so that in return for the money, is going to come back to bite them, I think, in the next few years. But also, if you look, and I forget who published the report, but I did look at a report the other day, and it was showing all of the countries around the world, and it was showing the proportion of millionaires that are leaving the country. And the UK and China is the top of the list in terms of millionaires leaving the country. So, you know, who's going to pay for all of this? That's the thing. They're giving away, I think, 16 billion to help other countries fight climate change, plus all of the cost of net zero policies in this country. They're giving these huge pay increases, and at the same time, they're telling us there's a huge black hole in the finances. We know the autumn budget is coming. There's lots of rumours. I think it's clear that which tax is it? The what's the tax on hold assets?
Capital gains tax.
Capital gains tax. That's the one I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, we know they're coming for that. I think they'll be coming for a lot more. I saw rumours yesterday that the Labour Party is thinking of introducing pay by mile as soon as autumn, or plans to introduce it in the autumn budget. So not surprising, really. People with wealth are leaving the UK. And like I said, I think 2 years into this government, things are going to unravel.
Yeah, and very interesting. Well, we had, you'll remember very well, we had Charlie Mullins, the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, on, who got his millions as a result of the sale that he did. And he was saying that if Labour got in, he's going to leave. Well, he has left. He's now based in Dubai and Spain. He revealed that here on the Muckrakers. And it is interesting because you're right. If you drive all the people who are basically producing all these millions away, then the balances are not going to quite add up. And it is interesting seeing what's going to happen about that sort of stuff, because they seem to be failing on all sorts of fronts, as you say, that on the policing stuff, a two-tier Keir, you've got all of those sort of measures where you get these sort of riots happening and people are in court within hours, but various things such as the Manchester airport and so on and so forth, it takes them an eternity. What are your views on the two-tier Keir, Andrew?
Well, I was shocked when they actually had the nerve or the gall to film the police superintendent in Birmingham making a statement as to why groups of Muslims armed with machetes and baseball bats were allowed to maraud around the streets with no policing at all. And he said that they'd spoken to the community elders and decided that they would let them police themselves. And that is, if you want any demonstration of two-tier policing, can you ever imagine of the police speaking to, I don't know, some let us say some white English people in the community and saying, well, you know, we're going to allow you to police yourself. I mean, it's just not going to happen. You can never see it happening. And there is only one law, and that only works if it's implemented equally and fairly across all communities and all geographic areas. And that's not what we're seeing. And that's the reason we're having a lot of anger on the streets, because it's blatant and it's in your face.
Yeah. Well, one of the laws which is coming in 24th of September, they've got the weapons, these so-called these zombie knives, zombie-style knives, machetes. They're going to be illegal under legislation. Heaven knows why they're not already. But they're going to have this amnesty. Do you think that's going to help, James?
What, with people handing them back in? I think the kind of people that own weapons like that are not going to hand them in, are they? I mean, it's already illegal to carry any kind of blade unless you've got you can prove good purpose. So I think the kind of people that are taking those onto the streets, I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? You know, you restrict gun licensing and it's not actually the real criminals that you end up capturing. It's law-abiding people who follow the laws. So I don't think we're going to see, all of these criminals you see on the streets with machetes suddenly go into their nearest police station to hand in their weapons. I don't think we'll see that at all.
Yeah. Final word, Andrew?
Well, I think that I'll go back again to that police superintendent in Birmingham, who announced with a megaphone to the crowd of Muslim young men with machetes and baseball bats that they didn't want to arrest anybody and that they could drop them all off at the mosque. It had a word, and they could drop them all off at the mosque and go home and leave them there. I just can't imagine him saying that to any other community in the UK currently.
Quite extraordinary. So, some brilliant points. Well, look, a break is upon us. When we come back, we're going to discuss in detail the monkeypox, the mpox, and the measures that are going to be introduced. Have we ever learned the lessons from COVID? We're going to find out after these messages.
replay of this hour, go to episodes at tntradio.live.